God morning, everyone. It is time to take a look at the Bible. We're going to look at this portion of Scripture where pastors get this, what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. And they'll preach about your haters. And when someone hates you and gossips about you or says bad things about you, God's going to exalt you. And they're going to look at themselves in shame. They're going to have to eat their own words once God magnifies you and all this. Now, that's not our God. It's not our God. But what I want to do is I want to look at this portion of Scripture and then a couple others in the end where this verse actually comes from. And let's see what these I can't call them horrible, they're God's children. The horrible thing that these people did to their brother. And let's see what God did to these brothers, what their father did to the brothers, and what the brother did to the brothers. And let's see if we can come up with this, what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. And your haters are going to hate you, but God's going to exalt you. Let's see if we can find that. For those of you who came in through the poem, God bless you. All right? But some of you didn't get the poem, so I want to repeat that real quick if you don't mind. All right? When the haters are hating all over you, what is a Christian supposed to do? Where do you hide? What do you do when the haters are hating all over you? There are haters at home and haters at work. There are haters from school and haters at church. I've heard sermons, they'll say that it's true. They'll tell you when you are hated what God will do. I've read the Bible. I know that's not true. What you're taught when you are hated is not what God says to do. What the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. I think we should read it in context. I really think we should. The word enemy is not even found in the verse. And they used it out of context. That's even worse. God blessed Joseph's brothers abundantly so. It's right there in the Bible. If you read it, you will know. So let's take a look at this. The verse we're looking at is, in King James, it says, what you intended for evil, God meant for good. New International Version says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Okay? The word evil, there's like 50 definitions. You know, what Satan does is evil. What Hitler did was evil. The Bible says that gossip is evil. Slander is evil. It says that cooking a calf in its mother's milk is evil. So it comes different ways. But this word evil actually means to harm or destroy. Okay? So they will quote this part. You intended to harm me, or what you meant for evil, God meant for good. They don't finish the verse. The rest of the verse is to accomplish what is now being done and saving lives. Whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. God meant it for good so that we could accomplish this stuff and save lives. Now, I want to give a real quick snapshot for those that don't know the story. And for those of you who do, please bear with me. You're going to like this when we get on the other side. But that's what you have to do. As those that know and are teachers, you got to wait patiently while little ones learn. Jacob has 12 sons. One of them is Joseph. Benjamin is too young to be involved in his story. So he's got the 10 brothers. Joseph would have these dreams where his brother's corn stalks would bow down to his, where the brother's stars would bow down to his star, where his brothers would bow down to him, to Joseph. They would get sick of this. One day they were out in a field, and the brothers decided to kill him. Then the one said, don't kill him. You know, put him in that cistern. It's a big vase that holds water. Put him in the cistern, and, we'll be done with him. He had planned on coming back to get him. Well, they did, and then when his one brother left, the other brothers sold him off as a slave. So Joseph gets sold as a slave to Egypt. He meets some people, does some prison time. He was falsely accused. The Pharaoh has a dream, and this dream is 7 big, fat, nice, juicy cows are there. And then all of a sudden, 7 scrawny, just shriveled up cows come and eat them. Again, there's more to the story, all right? But I'm just zipping through it for you. And then Pharaoh wants to know, what is this dream where these scrawny little cows eat up these nice cows? And Joseph says, look, the dream is this. You're going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. The famine will be so bad that it'll eat up the 7 years of plenty. Pharaoh says, what should I do? He said, look, tax the people, save as much as you can, store up everything you can so you can make it through the 7 bad years after the 7 good, okay? Now we fast forward about 10 years, and his brothers need food, so they come to get food from Joseph, okay? Now we're going to go into some of these scriptures. So they go see Joseph a couple times, but this is it. Now we're going to get into this. We're going to see what God does, what Joseph does, and what Jacob does. For those of you that are still here, thank you. I think you're going to like it. So Joseph is going to announce to his brothers, the guy you've been talking to is me, the one he sold into slavery. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here. What happened to hating the haters? Because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been a famine in the land. And for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing or reaping. This is a drought. This is a bad drought. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. They don't teach you that part, do they? He made me the father of Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, ruler over all Egypt. They don't teach you that part. He keeps saying, God sent me here. God did this. God did this. He just used you to do this. Now, this is when Joseph talks to the brothers. They go back to get his father. His father doesn't know he's alive, right? So, well, he doesn't know yet. So he said to his brother, I want to show you that God blessed the brothers. He blessed their socks off. So even when they sold Joseph into slavery, and he's out there for probably 17 years total, it says, then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so that you have to go, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man as a gift. A little balm, a little honey, some spices and myrrh, those would have been very expensive, and some pistachio nuts, we know how expensive those are, and almonds. And take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put in your that was put in the sack. You must return it back. Perhaps it was a mistake. Look at all the stuff they have. And it tells us they had flocks and herds and everything. They were getting grain for their animals. So God didn't curse them and beat them up. He blessed them because he blessed them before. So now we see Joseph's going to come, right? All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons and wives, numbered 66 persons. Not even, well, 2 of them, but not even one of the people that did this to him died. None of their children, nobody. There are 2 that died, 2 children, and that's because they sinned against the Lord. Okay? But he's still not punishing nobody. God's not punishing the sons, right? Now, this is the end of Jacob's life, the father, right? He calls all the brothers and he's going to bless them, right? And he's going to pronounce their future over them. The first two, he actually curses because of something they did in the past before Joseph was even born. And the crazy thing is, the one that got the worst curse, Reuben, is the one that tried to save Joseph's life. Judah, the one that said, let's sell him into slavery. Remember, they were mad because Joseph said, you guys will bow down to me. Look at the blessing that Jacob, the father, gave this guy, the one that sold his brother. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons, your brothers, will bow down to you. I'm not seeing a curse yet. I'm not seeing God beating enemies, and I'm not seeing it yet. Now, this is when the father dies. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong we did? So they sent word to Joseph saying, your father left these instructions before he died. They're lying. I might have too. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now, please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When they read this message, Joseph wept. Watch. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. They're terrified of being killed. Watch Joseph. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, and the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. Now, a couple years later, Joseph's going to die. He's going to bless his brothers. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land, to the land he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now we're going to touch on a few more, but do you see, that's the verse. What you intended for evil, God meant for good. What the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. These preachers don't even finish the verse. And here's the thing. We have people that hurt us. We all do. But when the preachers are preaching about your haters, you're like, yeah, get him, God, exalt me. Get me that business. So everybody that said I couldn't do it, they'll be ashamed. And whatever, help me with my diet. So the people that said I'd never make it will be ashamed. God don't do that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't want that. We don't want our children fighting amongst each other, right? We don't want that. Let's see what God does do. Let's see how he feels. This is Psalms 50. Psalms 50 is about believers. The first half is about believers doing the will of God. And the second half is about the ones that don't. I'm going to read you 16 through 21. We're going to focus in on 19 and 20. But to the wicked person, God says, what right do you have to recite my laws or take my covenant on your lips? You hate my instructions. You cast your words behind you. When you see a thief, you join with him. You throw in your lot with adulterers. Here it comes. You use your mouth for evil. You harness your tongue for deceit. You slander. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let me go here. You speak continually against your brother or sister. You slander your own mother's son. These things you have done, and I've kept silent. You thought I was altogether like you, but I will rebuke you and accuse you to your face. We've done, or we know people that slander their own brothers and sisters, slander their parents, slander their children, gossip about their grandchildren. We're not supposed to do that. And when these people are preaching this sermon, you think about your haters. They want you thinking about your haters. Think about your haters. They are your brothers and sisters. They're not your haters. They are your brothers and sisters. Sometimes your mom, sometimes your children, sometimes your grandparents, co-workers. The lady that runs the Bible study gossips about you. She's your hater. The lady in the food pantry, she's your hater. These people, when these pastors are doing this, they're talking about your haters. These are people that have hurt you. These are the people that God put around you. He put them around you, and they might hurt you, and you might want people to know. But maybe what he said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Maybe God needed you in that spot so he could work on you. He needed them. He used them to get you where he wanted. He wanted Joseph to run Egypt, but he couldn't just send Joseph in and say, all right, I run the place. He had to go through all that process. So that's what Jacob says is, look, you meant it for evil. There's no doubt about it. But God used you to do this great thing that he did. So what does Jesus say? Pray for our enemies. Bless those that despitefully use us. That's what he says do. He doesn't say nothing about haters. Pray for your enemies. Bless those that despitefully use you. It's longer than I wanted. I always say that. Sorry. Look at this. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. So when something bad happens, one of two things has taken place. God used someone or the situation to put you in a situation where he needed you, where he could work on you, where he could refine you, where he could purify you. Don't hate the person or the situation, because Joseph was clear. God did this. God did it. God sent me here. Okay? So you need to talk to God about that. And here, God will work all things to the good. So when the bad happens, that happens. So when those things happen to me, I say, all right, God, here's the deal. Did you use that because you wanted me here? Sometimes God says, yeah, you wouldn't listen. Sometimes he said, I wasn't behind it, and it was kind of a horrible move, but I'll work it together for the good. But he works it together for the good for all of them that are called according to his purpose. What did Jesus say on the cross? Jesus said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they are doing. If I was there, I'd say, Jesus, the ones that nailed you to the cross and whipped you and they're spitting on you and mocking you, I know what they're doing. How do you not know? He says, Glenn, I see what you see, but you don't see what I see. I see the heart. They don't know what they're doing. Hurt people hurt people. They're hurt. That's why they hurt you. Then, watch this. Stephen, in the book of Acts, the first one killed, all right, this is 759-60. The first one killed for Christ, the first martyr. They're stoning him. They're throwing stones at his head. While they were stoning him, Stephen prayed, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Then he fell on his knees and cried out, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. When he had said this, he fell asleep. He died while they're stoning him. Don't hold this sin against them. King James says, hold not this sin against them. Jesus said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they're doing. We knew what he was doing. Joseph said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good, to save lives. So there are certain swords I will die on. One of them, there are very few, one of them is this: no matter what happens, God knows, God knew. It doesn't matter what happens to you. It doesn't matter what someone does. God knows about it, and God knew about it. You need to see, why did God allow it, or what's God going to do with it? And then you pray for your enemy if you have one. And you bless those that despitefully use you. Okay? Because maybe God allowed them to hurt you because no one else is praying for him. I'm going to end with this. Imagine you go somewhere, a store, I don't care where you go, a restaurant, whatever, and you just meet the rudest, crudest, bullying type of man. And he hurts you. Maybe he's at church or at work. And he's just a bully. And you don't like him. He's your hater, whatever you want to call it. But you don't pray for him. Why would you pray for someone like that? But here's the deal. Could you imagine being his son or his daughter? Maybe God's letting him do that to you because God needs someone to pray. What about a woman? You know, nothing wrong with being perfectly dressed and perfectly matching. But she's perfect. Her nails are perfect. Everything's perfect. Eyelashes, eyebrows, everything's perfect on her. And then you go to church, you're in your pink dress with a red purse. I don't know how it works. And it's like, oh my God, a red purse with a pink dress? Really? And she does this in front of people and you hate her, right? And it hurts. How would you like to be her daughter getting ready for school? Listen, someone hurt you. God knew about it. God knows about it. He either ordained it or he condoned it. He either wanted you in that situation so he could work on you and refine you, or he's going to work it together for your good. I hope you get it. I hope it helps. For those of you who stayed this long, God bless you. And even those that left, those guys too. Make a God-tastic day, everyone.